This time I'll turn the volume up so we can hear the intro.
Dictionary.com defines an unplanned approach as impromptu, done without preparation, unwitting, done without awareness, spontaneous, done without thought. Wait a minute. That means you guys don't have a plan?
No.
Well, that's dumb. We might as well start the show.
Get out of here.
Get out of here.
She's so proud of herself. I got you, Dad. I got you.
And the more I think about it, the more I think just we shouldn't have had her do that. I don't know that I care for it.
You showed up by a 10-year-old.
Right, yeah. You don't need to give us any guff, kid. Get out of here.
You know, coming from the professional broadcaster, you know, back in the studio with us today to talk about the Indianapolis 500, what is your, you know, how would you critique that?
Oh, I thought it was cute. It was good. She was good.
She really hit that. And what'd she do it twice and then went and just that, and it was flawless.
Yeah.
She did it the second time, and we wanted to add some to it, so we did it a third time. But I told my other one that does the outro, I told her it took her 3 takes. So when she did it on the second, she chest out walking up the stairs.
Well, she was putting arms into it and everything. It was great. She was into it.
So, welcome back. Indy 500 time, month of May in Indianapolis, Indiana is without a doubt my favorite month of the year. God, you can hear just whenever you're on the west side of Indianapolis, for anybody listening, if you're not a race fan or you don't know anything about, you can hear the cars roaring, and when they do, man, the goosebumps start for me. I thought we'd bring back local broadcasting legend and concrete chemical salesman, my dad, John, who is a 500 aficionado, been out there 30s of times, right? Tens of 30s of times. If you listen to the last episode about the Kentucky Derby, you got a little taste of his experience at the 500, but I'm sure there's more where that came from. So without any ado, take it away, Dad.
Oh, well, okay, 500-mile race time. You guys were talking about the snake pit, and, you know, I get a big kick out of the way they refer to the snake pit today. You know.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the snake pit,
It's actually a concert.
it is.
Today.
Well, I was going to say, there's what's today, and then I know what I saw, which I thought was crazy.
Yeah.
But then my dad and guys of your generation, you guys saw chaos. You guys saw chaos.
That was not a concert.
Right. You guys saw something way different.
That was Caligula.
Like
Right.
Well, like we said that last episode, I saw someone in the mud. They were conceiving a kid on the drive out, and just buck naked right there, not 5 feet off the street. And they were like, that's nothing.
That's common.
Yeah, that's Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, it was a real snake pit back then, especially after it rained. Then it was really a pit.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
people sliding on their bellies 20 feet through the
That's gross.
broken glass, the broken beer bottles and stuff.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was just crazy. But, today, call it the snake pit. It's not a snake pit. It's a concert.
It's Disneyland.
I'm sure there's nonsense going on.
Well,
but not to the level.
They call the snake pit, the concert is called the snake pit, but in turn 3, because we sit in between 3 and 4 in the North Chute, way at the top, so we can see in 3, and that's still where when the cannon goes off at 6 a.m., people come in, they're driving like idiots to get in, not back in the day, but that's still, if you walk over there, it's shenanigans, but it's like clean shenanigans.
They don't understand the word shenanigans.
They're drinking.
There are no capers over there.
There's no capers over there.
Well, the original snake pit, I mean, that was kind of rough, and we were in it, as high school kids, and of course we didn't get involved in that stuff. We just kind of were spectators at that point, and we were always up against the fence in the first turn, and we were probably seniors in high school, and of course high school was about over by that time, so we'd take some beer in and stuff, and I remember James Gardner. Remember Maverick?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He was a big race fan, and he'd come through the first turn. He'd come up by the fence, walking by, and we'd offer him a beer, and he'd take it, and stand there and drink a beer and wander away, a long neck, which was the thing.
What was the beer of choice back then? Stroh's?
Well,
Billy Beer?
Stroh's, Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, well,
good
PBR.
beers.
That's why
Pabst Blue Ribbon.
That's why it smells so bad over there, people.
We're from Milwaukee, and we ought to know it's fresh brewed Pabst beer wherever you go.
See?
He's got all the talent. Yeah, right.
Kyle, you're starting
I
to
see it.
figure out, aren't
I
you?
am seeing.
If he would have broke out
there are signs.
if he would have broke out the flashy fingers and
Yeah, right.
the jazz hands.
I like
he
it.
would've Show choir, maybe.
Yeah, it was, those were the beers,
Right.
So
Steel City.
Steel City, I don't remember any Steel City.
Those would be stories from my dad.
He got the quality stuff.
Oh, yeah, he got the quality stuff.
Well, I remember one year out there, let's see, one of the funny stories, and this is when Jason was a kid. He was probably 8 years old, and his brother was, 11?
He's 11. I've been 3 years old.
And then his cousin from Michigan, they were down. He was 11. And so my nephew and his father, my brother-in-law, we took him out there for the race. Mm-hmm. But we were only going to be there for about the first 100 laps, and then we were leaving, just kind of show them that stuff. So I don't know where we parked, but we came in, and we walked down through the first turn, and we're walking. Of course, my eyes, I'm looking around for some of the nonsense, And,
Right, for a laugh.
I told Bob, be on the lookout. You might see some crazy stuff here. So we walked down through the first turn into the short chute there.
Right.
And right there, as we're just getting up there, one of the kids, John, his older brother, turns to me and says, "What were those people doing in that van naked?"
Right. They're moving furniture.
He's like, how did I miss that?
Yeah, I turned
Show me where. Show me where.
Yeah. So my brother-in-law and I would go, "What van?" Well, of course, there's 100 vans. So
Right.
He doesn't know. So anyhow, we go up to the by the fence there in the short chute, and the Outlaws, motorcycle gang from Ohio's got all that, because that's where they park the motorcycles and stuff. So they're all there, and I thought, well, I don't know, we won't give them any trouble. But they turned out to be really nice guys. They let the boys, go right up to the fence, and everything. Mm-hmm. So we're watching that first 100 laps, and I see John and his cousin, and I look around, I thought, where is Jason? And I turned behind me about 10 feet, and he's behind me, and laying on a blanket with her eyes closed is one of the girlfriends for one of the Outlaws. And she's laying back, and she's got her legs spread, And I'm thinking, oh, my God, I don't think she's got underwear on. And I look, and there's Jason, like 5 feet away from her, bending down, looking. I thought, Jason, get back there. God, what the heck? So I go home, and I told your mom about that. I said, watch that little pervert.
Right.
God,
And there are other signs.
Yeah. So that was kind of unbelievable. But I remember, 1961 was the golden anniversary 500. I mean, I think I first went out there. My first race was 1959.
Wow.
And parents took out there, and that's back when they had the scaffolds. I think that was the year the scaffold fell, and killed a few people.
No kidding.
People used to go out there in the infield and build scaffolds, to climb on, and I guess everybody leaned forward on the parade lap, and over it went.
Oh, my God.
Well, you say that, so real quick, one of the years I went out there, somebody built their own. They brought in a bunch of lumber, a bunch of 2x4s and some saws, and had a generator and a whole nine, right? And built this whole big thing. Watch a race. When the race is over, they just set it on fire.
Oh, wow. Goodbye.
They were not the officials were not happy. They set it on fire and drove away.
Yeah. So that was 59, but I remember about probably it was 61, and I was in the 7th grade, and one of my good buddies, his dad was a longtime safety patrol guy out there, and so he'd go out there at 4:30 in the morning, and I went over to their house and stayed all night, and Dave's dad got us up in the morning, and we went out to the track. I think rode out with some friends of his, and so we were out there really early, and Dave and his dad was in the first turn. He kind of ran the first turn up there by the penthouse. Uh-huh. And so he had us up there kind of pulling old bird nests down from above the seats in the penthouse.
Right.
So that was kind of cool, and it was a beautiful day, and Dave and I wandered over the infield, and people were cooking stuff, and then we came back for the race. So we got to actually watch that 1961 Golden Anniversary race from the penthouse.
One of the best seats in the house.
Right.
Yeah, and I remember, why of all the things in the race, I remember A.J. Foyt and Eddie Sachs dueling at the end until Sachs was going to finally win it looked like. And then with 3 laps to go, he showed a white cord, on his tire, which meant it was going to blow.
It was going to blow, right.
Yeah, so anyhow, so he lost it to Foyt. But I remember that, probably nothing else except the parade lap, or not the lap, the parade of automobiles before the race. Because in the Golden Thunderbird, it was gold that year for Golden Anniversary, was Jane Mansfield. So I'm up in the, in the penthouse, and she comes slowly by. I looked and I thought, boy, you can almost see down her dress.
I'm seeing a theme here.
So,
I am seeing a theme.
As a 7th or 8th grader, I thought that was, for some reason, it stuck in my mind.
Well, why wouldn't it?
Why wouldn't it? Right.
Isn't that perverted? It was a great finish to the race and a great start for,
Right. Great start to the
So
day.
I'm sure that story didn't get like overblown as soon as he got to school and told everybody. I dated Jane Mansfield.
She showed me her movies.
I remember another thing. Let's see. This is when we were in college, out there early in the morning, and what we'd do, we'd have about 30 of us. We'd go out there, and we'd stay all night in the Allison's parking lot at the Speedway, because one of my buddies' dad worked there, and he had parking permit, and somehow or another we'd get, I don't know, at least 20 of us in there. We'd stay all night, and then early in the morning walk over to the track.
Yep.
And one or two of the guys, I think, sit down there at the corner of 16th and Georgetown. And of course, that was pretty much happening and everything. One of the guys had a bolt cutter, sat in front of the chain link fence,
And opened it up.
and cut up some, cut some links. And I thought, what the hell's he doing? That's odd, So my job was to drive the van in. It was a buddy of ours. Dad had a meat market, and we we had the beer in there. And so all these guys, when they finally did, the bomb went off at 5. All these people are kind of moving over, to the entrances, and these guys, about 6, 7, 8 of them. All of a sudden, they turn around, they lift up the link, and they go through, and you got these, yellow shirts, the safety patrol going, hey, stop, stop. Well, there was no stopping.
Right.
Because we had to get some people over there to go through the tunnel and over to the first turn and stake out our area. So I came in later driving with a couple other guys driving the van. We had, 3 or 4 cases of beer in there, So what was funny about that was at some point about here again 7:30 in the morning or so, and not drinking any beer at all, one of my best friends and I, we'd had an argument a couple weeks before, and you only fought with your good friends.
Oh, yeah, right.
You didn't fight with perfect strangers. You
right.
just fight with your buddies. And we had kind of an abbreviated fist fight, and apparently, I must have got the upper hand in that, and he was pissed, and I had no idea he was pissed. One point, he comes over and starts arguing. Next thing I know, he kind of jumps on me, and we start going,
Right.
And I'm kind of covering up, going, hey, stop. He's like this,
Capers.
He's doing kind of roundhouse guy, and I'm
Right.
So anyhow, he finally quits. We kind of break it up, but I got a little blood on me or something, and like a dumbass, I thought, well, I'll go over to one of those toilet areas, I'll go in there and wash my face or something,
Right.
Thinking as I'm walking over, here comes here again, the sheriffs,
Right.
and they grab me, and I said, hey, I guess they asked, was I fighting or doing something? I said, no, not really. No. I said, some college guys jumped me or something. And anyhow, they take me over to the sheriff's bus, which was parked in in the first turn. And so I'm on there, and it's early. There's hardly anybody on there. Me and a few really drunk guys, you know.
Right.
And so we're in this little cell part in the back half of the bus, and I thought, this is crazy, you know. So little by little, it's kind of starting to fill up. But I was probably there about 40 minutes, something like that, and one of the sheriffs comes. Oh, I walked by. Matter of fact, the Marion County Sheriff, Jim Wells, who was a great guy, guy. Knew him since I was a little kid, you know, from the South Side. And he knew me, you know. And he goes, what are you doing on here? And I said, well, Jim, bigger guys jumped me. And he kind of looked at me like, oh, shit. You know, but anyhow, I go on the bus. I'm thinking, oh, man. So I'm on there about 40 minutes. It's starting to fill up a little bit. And sheriff walks by and says, is so-and-so they here? And I thought, that's me. You know, so I get up and I walk up to the bars, and he goes, and he points to the doorway, and one of my buddies is standing there, and he says you've got their car keys. Kidding me? I thought they wanted their beer.
Right.
So I take the keys out of my pocket, and I give it to him, you know, and my buddy kind of looks at me like, sorry about your luck, and goes back over there. So anyhow, I sit down. So now I'm getting kind of worried, you know, because it's going later and later, and now it's really getting, you know, kind of full up. And so finally, one of the sheriffs comes back and calls my name, says, "Come here," lets me out, you know, and I walk out, and I think Jim was there, and he said, "Get out of here," you know. I said,
right.
Oh, thanks, man. So I go back to my buddies, and we watch the race, you know. But that
so
was kind of
I'm really kind of starting to see a theme.
yeah.
There's a lot of people here. Is John arrested yet?
I got to stay away.
Every time he was missing,
Right,
somebody go check the bus.
If there's more than 50 people, John might be arrested.
And I wasn't drinking any of those times. You know, it was ridiculous.
Allegedly.
That's kind of a bad deal. I do remember
It's even worse if you're sober in the back of the
Oh, yeah, it's no good when you're sober.
I do remember a story. It was kind of funny. When I was younger, one of my uncles, they were talking about a friend of theirs, and this uncle had a bar, and anyhow, a bunch of his customers had gone out there the night before, and one, I guess, you know, was drunk, and he went into a ladies' restroom to relieve himself, and passed out on the floor, and picked him up and
Excellent.
threw this guy in the back of the squad car.
Right.
Yeah, and they're taking him downtown, and in the meantime, the squad car gets called to an automobile accident. So they pull over, and this guy's in the back seat, kind of out, you know. And so as they're investigating the accident, the flashing lights and carrying people away on stretchers, he wakes up and he looks, and he sees he's handcuffed in the back of this police car, and he goes, "Oh my God, what did I do?" So anyhow, they take him down to jail, and I guess, you know, his buddy saw, where did he go? He went to the restroom and never came back.
And he's got the car keys.
So, you know, those are strange things that can happen to you. So anyhow, let's see, we talked about that. And so I remember senior year in college, we got out of school in Cincinnati the day before the race, and I had made up some flyers. I was inviting a lot of guys from down Cincinnati to come up for the 500-mile race. I said, you'll love this, you know. And,
Sure.
And they were from all over the country, you know. So I had these flyers, and I gave them directions to the Southside KSC at 31 and Thompson Road.
Yep.
And said, just come in there, you know, and spend the night there, and then we'll head out early in the morning.
Right.
You know? So anyhow, we get there. I get to the KSC, and they came all different ways up from Cincinnati. And it's, I come into the parking lot, and there's a bunch of guys there. And one of the KSC guys comes out, and he comes up to me and says, what is this all about? Who are these people, and what are they doing here?
Right.
I guess they'd come out from the KSC and said, there's a lot of guys out there, you know. We don't know who they are. So they must have said, what are you guys doing here? And they mentioned my name and said, well, passed out flyers, said, come up to the 500-mile race, you know, come over here the night before, you know. And so they were mad, and they wanted to know what I said, well, what the heck. But anyhow, a whole bunch of us went out to the race. And And it was spectacular, of course, for them to see, the helicopters flying overhead and all the
It
people.
is amazing.
Oh, sure. It's something.
It's just something.
You got to do it at least once.
Oh, yeah.
At least once.
And the hair standing up in the back of her head during the ceremonies. Next day, I remember I was home and I was cutting grass, and I was getting these phone calls. It'd say, phone call, and I'd come in, It'd be some guy, one of those guys, calling from someplace in the United States, and they said, I got to tell you, that was the greatest thing I ever saw. For a day or two, I was getting calls from around the country from these guys, But we'd do things back in the day. I remember, I think it was maybe that year, a couple of us had, over the years, perfected the art of jumping over the fence at the pits,
Right.
In the pit area.
Right, yeah.
So, and if you got over the fence and then it looked like you belonged there, nobody bothered you,
Right.
So I remember being in there at the end of the race when Dan Gurney came in second. And he pulled up the pit, and we were right there. And we were right there with this pit crew coming up, and they were, taking his helmet off and, and stuff. And I'm standing there just looking into the car thinking, man, this is pretty cool.
Right.
And Gurney sitting there just came out of the race, taking his earplugs out, And some of those guys ended up, I'm pretty sure, in the they went down to Victory Lane, and in the pictures, you see a Victory Lane from different angles. You can see a few of them in the background.
Really?
So, they
Photo bombing.
Right.
They had a great time.
So I've got a question though. Carburation Day. So Carb Day now, they finally moved it to Friday.
Right.
Which kind of just makes the weekend amazing. Right?
Well,
It's it's amazing. But I do remember when it was Thursday. Now,
Oh, yeah.
When it was Thursday and you
That's
guys.
a big skip day for me.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
My dad pulled me out of school. We're going to the track. We did it every year for
Your
years.
dad's cool. Mine sucks.
Well, he was in jail. He was like, I don't want to go out there, the fuzz.
Yeah, I might get arrested.
I'm not allowed to get in there.
I keep getting a raw deal. Get railroaded at these things.
The lawyer screwed me.
They're looking for me.
Why do I feel targeted out here?
There's a picture of last year's winner, and I'm right next to it.
right. Be on lookout.
Didn't you?
Crime Stoppers.
Was it? Back then, did you guys used to skip school?
No, we didn't. They didn't have carb day. They had carb day because they had carburetors, but it was no big deal.
Right.
I don't even remember what day it was.
It used to be the Thursday.
Yeah, it was
before.
Thursday.
It was the Thursday before.
Well, I'm talking about grade school, high school,
Yeah, when
stuff
you-
like
yeah,
that. I don't really remember carb day, but I'll tell you what, first day of qualifications, man, there was many people there as there were.
Oh,
for
yeah,
the race.
absolutely.
It was big. I do remember in grade school one year, 8th grade probably, had some earbud. I had a transistor radio, if you remember transistor.
Oh, yeah.
Radio. And I had the earpiece up in my ear, and I was just listening to, I don't know, the radio and stuff that was going on, and they announced that Tony Beddenhausen had just had a terrible accident and was killed, or whatever. And I thought, holy crap, So I'm kind of motioning a couple of my buddies. I said, Tony Beddenhausen, and the nun, Catholic school, the nun goes, what's going on? And I made the announcement. There was an accident out at the Speedway. Tony Beddenhausen just got killed. And I didn't get in any trouble. She was like, "Oh my God,
Should we pray? Should we pray?
Should we pray? But anyhow, that's how it was in those days. We didn't cut school, but you might sneak a transistor radio
Right.
thing in there.
I thought he was going to say when the nun got.
Then I got arrested.
That's what I was going to.
Now, see, I was going completely different direction. I thought he was going to go, Justin, turn 3, Tony Beddenhausen, into the outside wall.
He stands up and goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, what have we found out today?"
Right. I can see it from the helicopter.
There's that helicopter from the other station. Oh my God!
And that's it.
So, I'll tell you something else out there in the day. We'd buddy of mine and I, a couple of us would get pretty good. We'd either get pit or garage passes, which you could get. You could get garage passes. You could buy them back then.
Oh, you still can. A buddy of mine goes every year.
Right. Well, we'd be out there, and I remember being out there on the. I remember. Let's see. This was back probably in high school. Lou and I.
My godfather.
Yeah,
Okay.
we
Shout out, Lou.
we once again, now, we didn't have pit passes, but we ended up in the pits. Of course, one of those clandestine over the fence quickly.
Right.
You know.
Definitely
And
caper.
so Jackie Stewart, you know, world champion F1 driver, you know, he was out there racing, and he was sitting on the pit wall, the inside pit wall there.
Right.
And so Lou and I sit down next to him, and we start talking to him. You know, he doesn't know who we are. You know, as far as he knows, we're big shots. So,
Right.
so we sat there for about 20 minutes talking with the legendary Jackie Stewart.
Right.
So a week later, I'm someplace, and I run into one of our friends' dads. And he goes, "Hey, I got a question. I was out there at the track last weekend. He said, did I see you and Lou sitting on the pit wall talking with Jackie Stewart?" And we said, "Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I've known him for years.
He invited
Right.
us over.
You know, he had
Jackie Stewart used to date Jane Mansfield.
I said, he had questions. You know.
Right.
So,
He didn't know which way the cars went.
and then there was another time we were in the garage here in Gasoline Alley, and Lou and I end up at Jimmy Clark's garage. And I think he was the only one in there. And so we're standing at the doorway, and we just get talking, and he was a nice guy. Now, he wasn't a funny guy. He was kind of a serious guy. But I thought, this is world driving champion Jimmy Clark. You know, I thought, this is crazy. You know, and two of us are talking to him, and he's talking, and I'm looking into his eyes, and he had these dark eyes, you know, and certain intensity. And I thought, man, this guy, no doubt, he's a big time racer. This is great. You know?
Sorry, Jane. I'm in love with Jimmy Stewart. I'm in love with Jackie Stewart. Remember that?
Then I'd go out there years later when I was working. I'd go out there, and some customers, we'd go out there, and one in particular, we were back in the garage area, and a buddy of mine, Mike, he had told me one time, he says, whenever you're in a big deal place or a famous place or some big event, he says, go have yourself paged. I said, really? He says, oh, yeah. I said, you won't believe the people that'll be like, what the hell's he doing?
Right.
Why are
Who's
they
this guy?
paging him? You know, why?
Right.
You know, so I'd walk up to the little thing, you know, and I'd say, I need to have you page. I'd give my name, you know, and I'd say any message. I'd say, yeah, I have him go to the Penske garage.
I got to go talk to Roger.
Yeah, so the guy just nod, you know, and we go back and we'd stand right around the corner of the garages, and then we hear, you know, well, then, you know, my name, you know, report to the Penske garage. Well, report to the Penske garage, you know, standing there, you know, and then we'd use his name too, my customer, and we'd be back there laughing, you know. So, and this was usually, like I said, it was probably the morning, either the day before, first day, or early in the morning, the first day of qualifications. And there again, I was someplace, and one of the guys that, one of the dads that we know, and you knew, you know too. Okay. But anyhow, he, you know, a few days later, he says, I was out at the track Saturday, and I'm around the garage area, and I hear you get named, or you were paged to the Penske garage. And I said, oh, yeah. Roger had some questions.
He had a couple questions.
So,
is it a left turn? Is it?
Yeah. So that was, you know, it was some great advice given to me by my friend Mike. You know, always have yourself paged at big events. Right. You know.
Well, that's a resume thing. You know, John Jaffe, 500 consultant. 500 consultant. Yeah. I'm here to help.
He stands out front with business.
I thought we weren't going to mention my last name.
We could cut it.
I haven't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I haven't been out of the Federal Witness Protection Program.
Bubba, Rocco, Tommy.
That's right.
Go pay a visit to the kind sir. I'll tell you, interesting enough about, you know, kind of the magic of the Speedway. I remember when NASCAR, and I only throw this in because it's the Speedway, when NASCAR decided they were coming to Indy and they came up to test. Do you remember that? Like the best 10 teams in NASCAR, the most popular 10 teams. I remember I was at, when they first came up to test, I was at work, and I worked on, down on 65 South, south of Indianapolis. And people were talking, hey, the haulers will be here. They'll be coming by, and they're practicing tomorrow. You know, they're gonna go out and do testing tomorrow. And it was a big deal, man. So everybody, we went out. We left work. I worked in petroleum manufacturing or something for a summer job.
Gas pumper, is that what they call it?
Custodial engineer. But our office wasn't too far from there, and the guy that owned it said, hey, let's go over the overpass and watch them come up.
No,
They're
absolutely.
supposed to be around about 2. Well, we weren't the only ones that thought that. I mean, it
yeah.
was packed. It was like OJ, and these like 12 haulers are coming up all back to back to back to back, and everybody was going nuts. And we thought, holy shit. So the next day they were going to practice. Well, I don't remember if we didn't have to work or I got off work or something, but I was talking to a friend of mine, or maybe my brother. I think my brother and I might have gone out there, and Dad was at work, and we're like, damn, they're out there today practicing. Man, nobody's ever seen a NASCAR on the motor speedway.
Right.
So we go out, and there were a bunch of people there.
Sure.
And I mean, it was a big event. It's almost like they were racing kind of thing. Well, we walk up, and where we're standing, about an hour into it, we run into Dad's out there. Like, what?
And he's cuffed.
He's handcuffed. No.
Don't tell your mom.
No, but it was so cool that.
Right.
That's a generational thing. You know,
Oh, yeah.
Speedway's a generational thing. So when we walked up, we're like, "Is that Dad?" And he's like everybody's looking at each other like, "You didn't have to work. I didn't have to work."
He's talking to Richard Penny.
Right. He just had a couple questions.
He had some questions.
Now, I do remember when they were testing. They had a lot of problems because the slope at the speedway was so slight.
Right.
It's flat.
Yeah, they were like, how are we going to generate speed?
Yeah, banked at 9 degrees.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's why they put it with Pocono. Originally, when Pocono's the same kind, it's the triangle, the flat
Right.
triangle. But, we also went out. So everything that's ever happened at the Speedway, I've been to. The NASCAR inaugural, we were there.
The F1.
F1, we were there. GP, MotoGP,
Yeah.
I was there. But I remember when F1 announced it, Dad's like, man, I think I'm going to get tickets to the inaugural. Let's go see what it's all about. It's an international event. So we didn't necessarily remember where to get the tickets. So we're like, we want to see the start because it's a standstill start.
Right.
So
the Grand Prix?
Yeah. For the Formula One. So we get seats, right like at the start-finish line, right there. And it starts, and it's kind of, man, the hubbub great. The racing sucks.
Oh,
It's awful.
It was terrible. I think we went to a couple Grand Prix, and one year took Mandy and Jim out there.
Well, I remember in the inaugural, it's the winner spun and still won by 12 seconds. It was awful.
Well, I took Mandy and Jim and Mom. We went out there, and I got tickets on the mounds inside, and I tried to pick a good mound where there was going to be a lot of turns and stuff.
Same theme.
So I'm in
mounds.
and of course, there were a lot of people on the mounds, and you had all these foreign guests, with all these flags from different countries.
Sure.
And it was pretty cool, and then the race starts, and then before long, it wasn't any kind of a race, and the funny thing was, the farther away the leader got from the next guy, the more excited these people got. It wasn't like racing. It was just like, how bad can he kick his ass?
Right.
And I thought, man, is this boring?
Of course, it was a German. It was Michael Schumacher.
Well, that and they watch soccer.
Well,
it's just like, what are you doing?
I remember Bob,
1-0. Like, come on.
Soccer. I love to watch the grandkids. Play it, but it's not the most exciting thing. I think the pitch is way too big.
Right.
They need to shrink that big time. Then it'd be more.
It would be exciting. It'd be more.
I remember Bob and Tom, the radio guys. Of course, they had a renowned soccer player on the radio one day, and they said, "Well, so why do you play soccer? How did you get into this? Playing soccer like this?" And he said, "Well, so I didn't have to watch it." And they thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, you got to be an athlete to do it well, no doubt about it. But
Well, I'm glad we kind of switched gears because, Dad, I don't know how many episodes you've listened to, but Kyle and I, always it reverts back to baseball, right?
Sure. Yeah. I think everyone at some point.
There's always a story at least, right?
Right.
Well, I was lucky enough, and the neatest thing for me about playing college baseball was looking back was that, traveling and your dad, he was in sales, concrete chemicals was big back then.
Right.
And being the aficionado that he was, he'd escape.
Well, there are questions, and somebody's got to answer them.
This parking lot this was not aggregate.
Why was no one consulting me?
If you ever want to piss him off, call a concrete truck a cement truck. He'll lose his shit, man.
Yeah, people. Well, there's actually some finishers. Every once in a while, we'd see a picture of a concrete finisher crew, and on the back of the bumper it'd say cement work, cement, cement's the powder that goes into concrete.
Right.
And a judge one time famously said the difference between cement and concrete is cement is to concrete as flour is to a cake. So when you hear people saying, "Yeah, I gotta get some cement out front," I think, "Hey, you don't want cement."
You don't know what you're doing.
Or on the news, they'll say
Rookie.
Or on the news, they'll say a cement truck, crashed into something. I go, well, I don't know. It could have been a cement truck, but
could have
been.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Now that would have been better if he'd have done it in his announcer's voice.
Right.
So what were you going to say?
So one of the neatest things was this experience, like him and a buddy, me and two of my friends from high school went and played at the same spot. So him and one of the other guys' dads would travel around. Like if we were on spring break, spring trip, he'd be down there. So it wasn't uncommon if we were playing an hour away or an hour and a half away for, Dad to show up. And two great stories about him being at these games. One was he always used to wear, and the Indy Giants. Kyle,
yeah.
That's an amateur team that I played for that you played for it against. He always wore his Indy Giants hat, that eye on it, and it had the San Francisco Giants colors. So he'd be smoking a cigar behind the backstop watching the game or
keep an eye out for the fuzz.
Making sure he didn't get arrested.
Or what? What'd you say?
Keeping an eye out for the fuzz, make sure you don't get arrested. Right.
Yeah, I don't need to get busted here.
So he's down at one of my games and he's wearing this, right? He's wearing this shit. And he might have even had a Giants shirt on where it just said Giants and had the state of Indiana. And people are noticing this, right? Guys on my team. And they're like, "Hey, I'm starting to hear this. There's a scout here. There's a scout here."
Right.
And I'm like, "There's a scout here? Holy shit, where is he?" And everybody's talking. He's behind the backstop. And I'm looking behind the backstop and I'm like, "Ooh, which one? Which one's the scout?" Because I'm like, "That's so-and-so's dad. That's my dad. That's so-and-so. That's so-and-so. That's so-and-so." And they're like, the guy in the hat with the eye that has the Giants shirt
on. The guy sitting next to Lou Piniella. Because he had questions.
But I'm like, "Ooh," and they go, "Right there." I'm like, I'm still trying to look through. I go, "Who are you talking about?" And they go, I said, "The guy with the cigar." I go, "That's not a scout. That's my dad. He's only here to scout my grades and my swing." That's how that goes down. So that's just one of the stories. One of the funnier ones was we were playing in Terre Haute. Mm-hmm. Terre Haute's about an hour from here, hour and 15 maybe from here. Playing at Rose-Hulman, and we're playing a doubleheader. We're supposed to have a doubleheader. Well, Dad comes down to the game. He's got clients down there, so he makes his way over to the game. It's like on a Thursday or Tuesday or something like that. And I'm playing in the first game. Well, I was awful in that. I mean, it was awful. Like 4 at-bats, no strikeouts, but like 4 pop-ups fouled at the first base. Just terrible.
He was doing everything at the wrong time, not swinging on a good pitch, swinging on a bad pitch. And I thought, what the hell? Coached the kid, forever. I mean, he knows better than that.
Some things trickle down, some things don't.
Right. What
not perfect. Dad got it.
The first terrible at bat, I thought, well, I'm sure he won't do that again.
Right.
Comes up with the second one, same thing, terrible at bat. Then the third one, And did you bat 4 times?
Four times,
Four
yeah.
times. I couldn't believe it. 4 of the worst at-bats I ever saw in my life. And so tell me.
So after the game, you don't see your parents all the time when you're in college. So I was like,
Right.
hey, I walk up. He's off the side by the dugout, and I said, hey, Dad, thanks for coming. And he responds with, go ahead.
He said, yeah. He said, I didn't do too well at the plate, And I said, I drove all the way down here to watch that shit. And I turned around and got in the car and drove back.
Right. Damn right.
So
I didn't stay for the second game.
Right.
So I get home. We get back because it's only 35 minutes from when we're done.
Right.
And he may have been pulled. He may have had to stop. May have had to do something. But I called my mom home, and I'm like, "Hey, is Dad home?" And she's like, "No, not yet." And she goes, "Oh, she said he came down for the game, right? And how'd the game go?" And I said, "Well, here's the story." I said, he left after the first. Let's put it this way, Mom. The first game was so bad. I played so bad that he said, I drove all the way down here to watch that shit, and he left. She goes, he left?
So Jason said he second game, his teammate says, so where's your old man?
That's exactly what happened.
And you said,
They're like, hey, man, wasn't your dad here? Where was he at? And I said, yeah, he was not happy about the way that first one he said. I said, he told me I drove all the way down here to watch that shit. And he left. They go, he said that? I said, that's what I grew up with. Man.
There it is.
I'm a perfectionist.
They
We're all
called it tough love.
That's right.
Back in the day. But no, that's the last baseball story I'll tell. So on our freshman year, our leadoff hitter was my buddy, who my dad used to come down to games sometimes with his dad.
Okay.
And we're in Tennessee. This is the first college game for him, me, for him and I. And
Right.
he's our leadoff hitter. Well, he gets up there, and it's on film. In one of the videos we have, this is being filmed. And Dad is filming it, and my roommate Dave gets up there, and first pitch right down the middle. Strike one. And you can hear in the camera, Dad go, that's all right. He gets one, you get one. You got two more. Next pitch right down the middle. Strike two. He's like, that's all right. Now you got to battle. See the ball, hit the ball. You got to battle. Third pitch, strike three. And he goes, that's awful, Dave.
Awful. Oh, I cannot understand why somebody would take a third strike looking.
Right.
I mean, don't leave it up to the ump. Do something.
Do something.
I mean, everything I learned right here, the greatest phrase of all time, see the ball, hit the ball, breaks it down to as common. I say it to this day. I'm like, guys, it's about seeing the ball.
Well, that's all I heard as a kid too. That's all I heard. Yeah. See it, hit it. That's it. If you can see it, you can hit it. If you can't see it, you can't hit it.
That's exactly right. I mean, got coached by the best. So, you got anything else?
Well, I'm kind of out of things. I'll have to go reload. Come back sometime.
Okay.
We need more boob stories.
Right. More boob stories.
Boobs and arrested.
I might.
Now looking at turn 2.
I might find a good hypnotist and do some regression.
Right.
Didn't you say something about being on a bus one time, getting let off the bus, and then having to getting caught again or something?
No.
Okay, I thought
Rosa Parks.
No, I learned my lesson. Well, I was. Hey,
I'm not getting on any more buses.
no more buses.
well, both times I really wasn't doing anything. I was the proverbial innocent guy.
Right.
Got railroaded.
They all say that. Shawshank. I'm innocent.
I didn't do nothing.
I'm the victim here. God.
So if you need consultation for the Kentucky Derby
or the 500,
Indianapolis 500, or your swing, your baseball swing, your golf swing,
I will tell you if it's shit. Well, he will tell you if it's shit.
Free advice. Advice. Dad, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
I knew it'd be great. If anything comes back to you, we'll have to see if we want you back on. We'll see how the ratings
Take a
go.
vote.
You guys have liability insurance?
Two insurance guys. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we can probably find something.
We're covered. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, a lot of fun. You guys really sound good. I like the way you sound.
If I could match it, I would talk that way at all
My
times.
sister thinks she's doing commercials for us.
Not anymore.
We got
the
the
man.
broadcaster in the 50s guy.
Yeah, the 50s guy.
Get the outro. We're out.
All right.
Talk to you soon.